You bake a lot too?
I don't bake. I'm not a baker.
No.
Maybe you can teach me some things. No. I cook. Bake? No. Too much science for me.
Oh, it's not science. It's just after you get to know, the recipe, you get just like you do in cooking. Oh, a little bit of this and really a little of this, and that's gonna be good. And
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Check podcast. I have a fantastic guest today. She has a brand new book out called German Heritage Baking. She's collected a bunch of awesome recipes from her family and the family traditions and compiled them into a wonderful cookbook for you to bake at home. Ladies and gentlemen, Heidrun Metzler. Hi, Heidrun.
Hi, Reyshan. Nice to meet you, and I'm thrilled to be on your podcast.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here. And since I'm not a baker, I'm excited to maybe learn some tips and tricks about making my way around the baking world.
Yeah, that would be great. There are certainly some easy recipes in there and some medium easy, and then some that take some time. I won't say it's difficult, it just takes some time because you might make a layer cake and then you have to make a filling and a frosting. And so if you're into crafts and designing, you're going to love those cakes because it's fun to do.
So what is it about baking that you love so?
Well, there are several things. First of all, eating it. and
well, I feel like we just skipped to the end.
Have your dessert first, right? You never know what will happen. No,
solid philosophy.
I was at home, from little kid on. There was my grandmother, my mother, my aunt. They were always baking, and we had phones, but not the portable ones. Just a, phone.
Landlines with a big long cord on them.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'd call up, Aunt Kitty, what are you cooking and baking today? And she would tell me, and then if it sounded good, I'd take my bike and bike up. It took about 5 miles. It was all, and then I'd hang out with her.
Oh, that's all. Just 5 miles. Wasn't just a short jaunt, if you will.
Yeah. And she had a gas oven, and she swore by that gas oven. The cakes turn out better. And then you ask my mother, and she's like, oh no, the cakes turn out way better in the electric oven. So there was always this thing about it. And
so which one is it? Which one is better?
Well, they are different. I'd say the crusts on my aunt's cakes were a little bit more crispy, and the electric oven is more more delicate. It depends. I like them both. It's I ended up getting an electric oven again for baking, but I have gas on top now. I just recently got a German oven because it has a misting setting for the breads. So you can actually make your bread, and then the last rising, you just put it in the oven and it rises it, mists it, and bakes it all together. And yeah.
I do love an easy way to make bread.
Yeah, it's amazing how they figured it out. But so my grandmother used to make everything from scratch, and obviously all of us did, but she just threw items together. She never had a recipe. And we all agree, in the whole family, we agree she made the best sweet yeast cake with the fruit and the crumbs on top. And one time I asked her, I went up there again, I pedaled up with a bike because she had crumb cake. And I was like, no way, I'll miss that one. And it was so good. And I said, well, Oma, I want to have the recipe. And she said, I don't have one. I just feel it. I just have it in my wrist. And she said, well, sometimes I put lard in it. Like, from back in the war, they didn't have butter. So when they slaughtered a pig, they took all that belly fat and melted it into this lard, and that's what they used for butter. And the other way they did it was from the goose, like those fat geese.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
remember
Oh, I
eating
bet that was delicious.
Yeah, I remember eating fresh bread with goose lard and salt and pepper, really good salt and pepper on it, and you spread it on the bread. It was so good. So now I'm thinking, I can't believe I did that.
But that was food from necessity at the time, and now that's probably a 5-star, dish.
Yeah, it did.
You're gonna pay way too much money for it.
It just made it so smooth and silky when you bit in it. And I haven't tried it, but I'm just always thinking about my health. I figure butter is bad enough.
Oh no, butter's good for you.
Yeah,
Butter is good for you.
It is. Well, I
Re-
like baking with butter, and I try to stay consistent with the American, the sticks. You all have it in sticks. There are 4 sticks.
I buy Amish butter. So I'm a health nut. So like
nice.
but butter is good for you. Seed oils are bad for you.
Yeah.
Fat is good for you. Sugar is bad for you.
Yeah.
Right.
In small amounts we can do it for treats. But we have the square, the big rectangular thing as the German butter, sort of like the Irish butter you see in the stores. I don't know if you guys have that. Yeah. And that's a richer butter. So I stuck with the American with this individual 4 sticks in a package, that kind of butter, and always unsalted. And if you change it to like the Amish butter or the European butter, there will be a little bit more fat in it. So you might have a little change. You might have to use a little less butter or a little more flour or something, but you can do it. But
science. The science of baking. Baking is very not for your grandmother because she just winged it. But like generally speaking, the measuring cups are very important in baking, right? And the actual amounts matter. Usually.
Yeah, and what I found out is that a cup, like you buy sets of these cups, the quarter cup up to the 1 cup, you buy these sets, and they have a law that these cups can be a size between, in between, like they can be off a couple of millimeters. So you end up with a smaller cup in one set. So never mix the sets up because, you'll get...
They're slightly off?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I went and measured, and sure enough, I had 1 set that was smaller. Every increment was smaller than the metal ones I had. And the same with the eggs.
Well,
they have a range on the eggs, how much a large egg will weigh. So when I go to the store, I always look at the large eggs. Wow. Because sometimes they put smaller ones in there,
Yeah. Do you have a little scale for the eggs? Like just to make sure, because I do think about that a lot.
You can just open it and look at them. And like recently I bought one. I'm thinking, this is very close to medium. so I try to get
a little extra
because they have large eggs, medium eggs, and then they have extra large eggs.
XL, extra large eggs.
But there's like I said, it's in increments that you can stay within the large or within the extra large. So when I go, I'll get the large ones that look large. I'm about to send out a newsletter with the first recipe from the book. It's a coconut macaroon recipe, and it's super easy. All it takes is lemon juice, powdered sugar, 2 beaten egg whites, large, and coconut rasp. Not the flakes with the sugar, like unsweetened, the rasp that you can find in a health food store.
The actual shavings. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty small actually. But yeah. So
how do you just mix? You just mix it all together and.
Yeah. So you're
done.
I'm just making the video for it. Because I want the people that have signed up to the newsletter, I want them to see it. So I make them a video usually.
Yeah, which in your cookbook, which is super cool, because if when you open up her cookbook, she has all these QR codes inside of it that will take you to links and videos of her making the recipe to like walk you through it. So it's almost an interactive cookbook, not for every recipe, right? But
well, I'm
quite
hoping,
a few things in there.
You know, as I get more time, once we have this wrapped up, which should happen here shortly or another week or two, and then it goes off to the indexer and after that to the printer. But then I'll have more time. I actually have raw footage that I have to make into videos still. And so, yeah, my plan is to have something of everything that I'm baking, and especially I've split it up, like the chapters are split up in the book. So when you go to my Vimeo channel, I call them showcases, and there's the showcase for the let's see, pound cakes are in book 2. I have another book coming out. We had to split the book up because it got too big and too heavy for the price it costs to print a big book and to mail it. So we actually split them up. So
yeah, I mean they can get pretty big. This is the biggest baking book I currently have.
Yeah.
Which was Anna Olsen's, and this thing is, I mean, it is. When it arrived in the mail, I was like, "What in the world is in there?" And I opened it, I was like, "That's a big
one." She did a letter size. It looks like too.
Oh yeah, oh man, yeah, you can get your workout on this thing. I mean, if you're going to be eating so many sweets, I guess it's good. Like the book's heavy. Okay,
that's right. That's what you can do. You can while it's baking, you do your workout. Get ready for when it comes out. You can eat 2 pieces.
See, and as a child, you were brilliant because you're like, hey, I'm going to go right up to my aunt's house and eat all these sweets and then ride back home. So like you literally burned, you got the appetite built, ate the sweets and then burned them all back off by the time you got home.
And I climb up the trees and get the fruit, that too.
Yeah. Eat whatever you want as long as you're working for it. Right?
Yeah. So I have the Vimeo channel split up into Mürbeteig, which is basically very close to short crust dough. But I make all my pie bottoms with that type. So it's basically flour, sugar, an egg, and vanilla. Sometimes I put other flavors in. And then you take the block of butter and I have this technique to slice into slices, and then you flip it over 90 degrees and slice it again. And then you get these long logs, right? The butter logs. And then you cut
butter logs
pieces all the way from the beginning to the end. So you already have your little chunks in the flour. And you have
well, that makes it easier.
Yeah, and so now you haven't touched the butter with your hand so much that the butter is starting to get warm, because you need cold butter straight out of the fridge to do this dough. And then you just chop it up with your metal blade, the pastry blade, and you chop, and then you mix it up with your hands and put the crust for 30 minutes in the fridge while you make the filling. And then you push it into the baking pan. I do it like my mom, and I don't roll the dough out. I just make little pieces of it, put it around in the pan, and then I dip my fingers in flour and then push up around and push it in place, and that's it. And I like doing that. I like my hands.
That's the crust.
The feeling of being, there. It's like when you were a kid and you made mud pies, didn't you like it having your hands in there? So it's sort of like that. I get to play with stuff.
That's where the love comes from, right? It's just getting your hands in there and working it around. That's the love. It's like I make homemade French fries in the oven. Right. But I don't have a potato press to cutter. Right. So I literally cut every single French fry by hand.
Oh, good for you.
Right.
Those are
rinse
the
them, set them all out on a towel individually, right? Like so they can dry with a fan. Like let them dry, like, and then you have to flip each one individually. So each fry individually gets so much care and attention.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Those are the best ones. Yeah.
So the love. You got to get in there with your hands to give the food the love, to share the love, I think.
Yeah, and I like, tasting too as I go along. And it's really, if the dough tastes good, you're gonna get a good cake. But if you can't, like, especially with the spicy cake, sometimes if you do too much nutmeg or too much this, so it gets to be a fine. You have to think about, okay, how much. I like cinnamon, so cinnamon is my base, and then from then on, you just know which of those spices are really strong, and you just want a little pinch of it.
Right.
So I make a huge gingerbread house. And when the kids were little, I did it every year. And it takes like 3 days to make it, because one day you make the dough, you let it rest overnight. The next day you roll it all out and cut it out and bake it. And then in the evening, you can already put like the two gables and the side walls together. And you have to hold it up with different. I usually just use cans. I don't know, asparagus, whatever I find in cans. That the asparagus is tall, so that's good. And little
milk cartons. We always milk cartons.
Yeah, little cups that I put in the corners, and then it has to dry. And then the next day you put the roof on, and then the next day you end up decorating. And that's
actually decorating.
That's when I call the kids in, and they have so much fun.
Where's the video for that? That sounds like a 3-day gingerbread house video.
I am working on it. Yeah, that has to be finished before the book comes out. And the other thing that I have to finish is how to make the filigree on the cover page. I have this chocolate filigree around the cake.
What's a filigree?
It's
what's a filigree? Hold on, I'm gonna look at it. I have the cover.
It's I don't know what do you call it. It's just basically drawing these little swirls, like it looks like out of the from time when they do the Lily de Fleur, and
okay,
it's just like a design with loops and that looks fancy.
It's pretty. It's pretty and fancy.
Yeah.
It's that. They're flowers.
Oh yeah. You got my cover. Yes. Yeah. It's just.
Well, I have the whole PDF somewhere. I can't. She sent it to me because I've looked through the book and I can't find it in my email as quickly as I.
Yeah. So you make up this chocolate glaze, and the trick about it is you put paper down, the parchment paper. The trick about it is to not have the tip of your bag the pastry bag that you're squeezing, do not have the tip touching the paper. You want to hold it like a centimeter or so above it, and then just let it fall. And that's how they come out better. So that's what I have to do in my video now. So people, if they want to do this, this design, I have an easier design.
Yeah. Video showcase.
Yeah, exactly. So for each chapter, I have a video showcase for each chapter. Yeah, it's fun.
That's so much fun.
Yeah.
So it's a German heritage cookbook.
Yeah.
So we as Americans, we're just all about our white cake and our sheet cakes and icings, right? Like we're not real fancy when it comes to branching out. Right. And so I imagine your heritage comes with a whole plethora of flavors and spices and ideas and things that we just, as generalized Americans, don't really see, make, or appreciate as much as we probably should. So what is the heritage? What is the difference between that and your grandmother's baking?
Well, I guess everybody in Europe has a way of baking things differently. The French love to bake with these amazing creams and the filet. What do they call it? It's like the phyllo dough and things like that. And
Very flaky, very buttery.
The Italians love their pistachios and their ricottas and that kind of stuff. And the Germans, I think that the Germans are probably the most that had different types, like the ones that are faster, like a marble cake. When I want to have a chocolate, I get these chocolate cravings and I want to have a cake. I always go to the marble cake because the marble cake is easy to do. You lay your eggs out, you lay your butter out, you let it come to room temperature, and then you just put it together real fast. You take the chocolate chips in a microwave glass, and it goes in the microwave.
Swirl it in.
Seconds, you stir it, you pull it out, you do another 30 or 40 seconds, and then you keep stirring till all is melted, and that's it. It's really fast. You don't have to, go into this double boiler thing unless you want to do a fancy glaze. Then I use a double boiler. But anyway, so it's just butter.
So melting chocolate hack, microwave melting chocolate hack.
Yeah. So it's just like, butter, sugar, eggs. That's always how you start. You cream the butter, you add the sugar, you add the eggs, you add the flavors, and then you add your flour. And I have some milk that I alternate pouring in. So I pour a little flour in, mix it, little milk, mix it. You don't want to overmix those cakes. And then after it looks like all the lumps are gone, you take it out and you can, smooth it out a little bit with your spoon. You can do a little bit more mixing. And then you put half or I would say 2/3 of that batter in the form. And then the chocolate goes in the rest of that batter. You mix that up and you put that on top of the white batter. And you take a fork is best. And you dig in with the fork without touching the metal. And you fold, you make like a circular movement. And that's how the cake gets marbled.
Pops out.
Yeah, you just you go down and over and down and over. It's sort of like a folding motion, what we call it in baking. And so, and then it just bakes like 50 minutes.
You make everything from scratch.
Yeah, and I love that cake. That's pretty fast.
So when you get a craving, you're not like, I'm going to go to the store. You're like, I'm going to need about 30 to an hour.
Yeah.
And that craving is going to be satisfied.
That's it. Yeah, I don't go to the store. My son, my kids grew up with it and they really didn't ever notice anything was different. And when the younger one moved out at about, he went to different schools and stuff. But anyway, he finally, at 30, bought his house, had a kitchen, and he ended up moving to Reno. He lived different places in Texas and while he was doing his residencies and stuff. But anyway, he was calling me up and he said, Mom, you need to finish that cookbook because I can't find anything to eat. What do you bake? The way you bake. And so at that time, I had been dabbling and pulling it out and putting it back. And it was, I came here at a young age and I could already see there wasn't anything what I was used to. I had the same reaction as him, actually. And so I ended up going home. I came with 5 recipes written on this small piece of notepaper. And I just put the ingredients down. It was kind of an afterthought. So I scribbled them down and took them. And then every time I went home, I got more recipes. And also, like, my aunt made this great marble cake. And I played with it because I wanted it a little bit lighter. So, then I play with it till I get it. That's kind of how I bake. And then,
but then you had to write the recipes down, unlike Grandma, right? Like,
well, whatever I could get out of her, I used. But my mom and my aunt, they watched her, So they ended up writing it down. So at least I
Good for
got
them.
their recipes, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, I lost my train of thought a little bit here.
Grandma knows easy to
Oh,
make.
with Jared saying you need to finish this book, and I
Oh, right.
had for decades dabbled in it, and always got frustrated with the directions because people would come to me and they ask me questions that I was like, oh my god, they don't know that because they didn't have parents or grandparents to teach them. So, and I thought, okay, how much detail do I have to put in there? So I started off with all the details, and it was too much. And so I needed somebody that helped me put that
Condense it.
to condense it, but not lose the important parts. And
Right.
eventually I interviewed a couple of editors. They didn't really do what I needed to do. And then had this brilliant idea to go look for a ghostwriter. Even though I had all my stuff, I decided, okay, I need someone that really helps me. The editors don't seem to do this anymore like they used to. And so I.
Well, because you almost need a chef who's also a writer,
Yeah,
because you need to explain certain attributes, right? But yet keep it simple and not too over wordy, right? So less
exactly.
words, but still maintain the knowledge of this is going to communicate appropriately to actually recreate the dish.
Exactly. So
Which,
then
and who
I
does that?
yeah, I found Rebecca through someone who wrote a blog. She got me connected with her. And turns out she had a German grandmother and was familiar with some of the desserts. So
The techniques and
she baked almost all the recipes in the book.
just following along with your recipes to see if it works.
She wanted to get the feel for it so she could write it better and find her important points that she felt were important. So we worked together for 7 years on this, and it's gone back and forth and back and forth. And
7 years.
I edit. Yeah.
Woo.
I know.
You have any cookbook authors I talked to that just were like, COVID happened, so we decided to go ahead and make the cookbook, and bam, it's out. 7 years.
Yeah.
7 years of a labor of love.
A labor of love. I know.
And it's going to be out soon.
When she introduced me to the proofreader, she wrote an email and said a little bit about Jennifer, my proofreader, and then she said something about me to Jennifer, and she said, I am very impressed for Heidrun's stamina for this book. Because I did not give up. I just,
Bravo to both of you.
Yeah. We are all excited. We're all excited. This is coming, now slowly together.
When does the book come out? Do we know yet?
We're hoping October now. And so we have 2 weeks of going over the last edits right now. And then it has to go back to the designer if there are mistakes, that she has to fix them. And then it goes to an indexer who needs about a month to do the index. And then it goes to the printer and they need about a month. So if nobody delays, I think sometime in October.
Fingers crossed.
I know, fingers crossed.
Because that bun has been in the oven for 7 years.
Yeah. It's been, but we're all excited, and we had testers, and I kept testing, and there was the Tarte Tatin, the upside down apple cake from France, and the sisters Tatin. It's the sisters Tatin. They had a hunting lodge in Solon, and all the hunters would come on the train and stay at the lodge to go hunting in the countryside. And they made this upside down cake. And the story has it that she forgot to put the crust in first, and then she was, cooking the apples a little bit. You have to cook a caramel first, and then the apples go in the caramel, and then you got cook that for a while. And um, so she said, "Oh, I'm just going to put the crust on top," and then she put it in the oven. And then when it comes out, you got to turn it over, right? And so it's called Tarte Tatin, which is the tart of the sisters Tatin. I really wanted that pie in my book, even though my aunt and mother do not bake that. But I had eaten it in France once, a really good one, and one time another one that wasn't so good. So I was going after the good one. And it took a long, I mean, this story could be long, but anyway, making it short, I ended up figuring it out by looking at a French site that was telling the story. It was from the government, telling the story. There were photos. I had to Google translate it. And I kind of figured out she must have cooked most of it on the stove and only cooked the crust in there. And then so I was rethinking everything. And the difficult part is to make the caramel. And at first I kept thinking, oh, the apples have to go in now because the caramel will get too dark if I don't do it now. And that's not true. You fix the caramel until the way you want it. And once the apples go in with the juice, it doesn't go brown anymore. So that took me a couple of times before I
see science. Baking is science.
Anyway, I made that pie 14 times. I was not given
14 times.
14 times. I was like, not giving up.
Well, 14's not that many. That's and you got to eat a lot of pie.
Yeah. And my husband my husband always says he has the hardest job because he has to eat it all.
Yeah. Poor guy.
That poor guy. I know. He comes in sometimes when I don't have. I mean, I don't need something sweet every single day, so I don't bake every single day unless while I was doing the book I was. And he got so used to having sweets around every day that one day there was 3 days of famine, and he comes in the door and he goes, "We're out of cookies,
Oh no, you got him hooked on sugar, like for real.
I know, that was funny. I said, well, you know what?
I mean, that's really good cookies though. They're really good cookies.
Yeah. I said, there's a whole recipe book. Why don't you make something from it?
If you want it, you got to work for it.
Oh, he's funny.
It's only fair.
Yeah, but I'm really excited about this book. I feel like it became a teaching book as we were developing it because, I had my son in mind who basically didn't know much about baking and but wanted these recipes. And so my thought was, well, how am I going to describe this so he doesn't run into problems? So it became a recipe and teaching book, and it has lots of tips that are within the directions. There's like a tip box, and they are usually there to keep you from making a mistake or to remind you of something. There are notes. They're at the bottom of the page. They are not as necessary while you're baking, but they're good to read over even before you bake or later. You could do it too. Anyway, so yeah, I hope people have fun with it. And, I have my email on there. They can ask me if they have trouble. I try to answer the questions, and it's having a good oven is good. And then learning how the oven bakes too, because some ovens bake.
They're all different.
And my mother always told me that, you just have to try it out. In Germany, she bakes a lot of stuff on the bottom, and I can't do that because in American oven it burns. Most of the heat comes from the bottom, and in Germany the ovens have upper and lower heat. It's split up, so it's a different kind of baking. And when I got this German oven, I told my mother, I said, I got the German oven. Where do you bake your whatever it was? And she goes, well, you have to try it out. All ovens are different. I'm like, thanks, Mom. I know that.
Yeah, they're all different.
I just thought it was funny because I wrote about that in the book, and then she gives me the answer that I said in the book.
You're like, I knew. I don't even know why I bothered asking.
Yeah, but there's, I give tips on bake this one in the middle, bake this one in the upper third, bake this one in the lower third, and usually I add another cookie sheet on the lowest rung if I bake it low, and then the crust doesn't get too dark, especially on cheesecakes. They bake a long time. The ones that I bake anyway, they're baked in the big pan, like in the 3-inch tall pans.
So you just put a pan on the bottom to diminish the heat slightly?
Yeah, to deflect the heat. Yeah. I don't set the pan on it, but I have it on another rung down below.
On another, yeah. Just down below to just disperse it slightly. Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
Which is why you never want to put a rack underneath your French fries, because it will keep them from crisping.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, where can we find you in the meantime before the book comes out? So maybe we can pre-order it, or what do we got?
Yeah, so it's heidrunmetzler.com, and it's on, I have a webpage, and we just finished the shopping cart. The web designer said it's working, and it asked the distributor, can we pre-order? And they said, of course you can. So you should be able to pre-order now.
Fantastic. All right. Yeah. Everybody go to heidrunmetzler.com. Links down there, and go pre-order her book so that you can become a professional German heritage baker. Because that's why I don't bake, because there's so many little things about it that like usually don't get answered in books. So thank you for taking the time, and I bet your son appreciates it.
Yes,
because now he can. He doesn't have to wait on you to visit.
Yeah.
Last question, super important. What are you having for dinner tonight?
For dinner?
Do you know?
Probably crab cakes. I made some crab cakes yesterday, so we have leftovers with asparagus and hollandaise sauce and broccoli.
Well, that sounds lovely.
Yeah.
I'm having leftover sloppy joes.
Oh,
I made sloppy joes.
They're good too.
Yeah, grass-fed beef. Farm fresh peppers and onions in there.
And I'm also on Pinterest. I have I'm very active on Pinterest. Well, number one, because of my horses. I started it for my horses, but now I have a board just for German heritage baking. So I've added things there. I'm on Instagram as Heidrun Metzler too. And
just Heidrun Metzler at Heidrun Metzler.
Yeah.
Bam. Super simps. No one else took that one, huh?
Yeah, I know. It's I don't know what name. The first name is supposed to be from Norwegians have a lot of Heidruns. And my dad always said, no, it's old Germanic, like, Siegfried and Gudrun, those Nibelungen stories. I don't know if you're familiar with them. But yeah, so anyway, that
super easy to find. I also get any URL I want.
Yeah, I'm trying to put some things on YouTube. I haven't done YouTube in a while. But most of my stuff is on Vimeo. Well, and when you go on Vimeo, you'll see a lot of horse stuff too, because it's Twig Horse, Skeeter, or Heidrun Metzler should get you there.
So Heidrun likes horses and baking. These are two loves of her life, because her husband won't leave her alone about making her cookies. Do you ever bake for the horses?
I have made cookies for the horses.
Like for their birthdays or anything?
Out of oats and molasses, and I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Birthdays, special occasions are just like, oh, I just love them. I'm going to make them a treat.
Yeah, I buy the treats and they're so expensive, and I thought I could make it, but then I made it once and then I didn't do it again.
They didn't come up to the window and are like, hey, just so you know, we're out of treats.
They do. We're out of cookies.
Oh, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Well, Heidrun, thank you so much for hanging out with me and sharing your cookbook with the world coming October-ish. And I look forward to it. And I have it, so I might go try to make a couple things and impress my wife. Well, she'll be like, and then next thing I know, she'll be like, honey, we're out of cookies.
We have so in about 2 weeks I should have the completely cleaned up version. I'll send you a new one then.
All right. Well, thank you, my dear. Happy day to you. Congratulations on 7 years and finally getting her out there.
Thank you. I know it's a milestone for sure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun chatting with you.
Yay. It was great hanging out and chatting with you. And enjoy your crab cakes.
Yeah, we will. And
awesome.
your sloppy toes.
I will. And tell the horses and the husband I said hello.
Okay, I will. Thanks, Reyshan.
All right. Thank you, darling. Cheers, everybody. Go pre-order Heidrun's book. It's fantastic. It's got all those links in there, so you can just scan the QR code, go watch the videos, super interactive. And apparently, if you have a question, you can just email her and she'll answer. Thank you, Heidrun. Cheers, baby.
Thank you. Bye.
Order up.